Hi, welcome to Dr. C Spills the Medical Tea. I'm super excited for today's episode. We have one of my longtime friends, Osama, I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
Elbuluk.
Elbuluk. And he's going to introduce himself, and we're going to have a conversation about how to prepare for residency.
Sure.
Are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's get started. So, as you know, well, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. My name's Osama Elbuluk. I grew up in Akron, Ohio. I did med school with Chantal from 2010 to 2015. She did a master's-ish, I think, and I did a research year. We became pretty close in med school, been good friends ever since. I did a radiology residency at UCLA and then a neuroradiology fellowship at Cornell. And now I work as a teleradiologist doing kind of emergency radiology. And I live in San Diego. That's about it.
That's you in a nutshell.
Yeah, those are the major hits.
But you're so much more than that. So
I appreciate that.
he's also an anti-influencer, so you're not going to be able to follow him or anything. But
Yeah, too low key. Follow me at too low. No, I'm just kidding.
but I felt like you'd be such a great addition to talk about the residency process. And we just came off match day yesterday.
Yeah.
So we're still gonna give you all the insights and some stories. We won't share all of each other's stories because we've been through it, but we will definitely give you some good advice.
We'll do the best we can, for sure.
So yeah, match day was yesterday, and I was just kind of looking at the news around match and everything, and apparently pediatrics was not very well matched. So I guess family medicine and pediatrics are kind of climbing in the unmatched spots.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but then they get, students will soap into it. But they're saying that pediatrics is less matched now because they're requiring subspecialty fellowships now to be like a pediatric hospitalist. And which I thought was super interesting.
You have to do a hospitalist fellowship?
You have to do a pediatric hospitalist fellowship.
That's nonsense.
What do you think about this over fellowship kind of academic-y era that we're heading into?
I mean, I think there's a role for a fellowship if it's actually a fellowship. I think there's always some irony in the people who made that rule probably didn't do a hospitalist fellowship, right? There are probably people who did 3-year pediatric residencies and then became hospitalists and are like, oh, these guys need to do more training. We need some free
labor.
Yeah,
we need some free
exactly.
labor. So
it's just opportunistic. And it's like, if you think people aren't ready, there's an element of you're never really ready. Like, you kind of got to learn trial by fire. I'm sure a good resident who put in their time, they're ready to rock. Let them go. Let them go start their life. Especially like if you want to keep retaining the best people to go into medicine. Like, you can't make the process any longer than it is.
I know. That seems to be the discourse online, which I agree with, especially when you talk about something like family medicine or pediatrics, where it's supposed to be general and you learn so much in the setting that you're in.
Yeah.
And it depends on the hospital, the population specifically that you're working with. And no one's ready, like you said, when they get out. I think the first year of becoming an attending is incredibly challenging because you are on your own.
Yeah.
So how do you feel did you feel ready after your fellowship? Do you feel like your fellowship was really needed?
Yeah. There's a couple questions there. How did I feel after my fellowship? I felt like I learned a lot. I felt ready, but there's this element of kind of like the last 10%, which you never really kind of figure out until you're on your own. Because like as a trainee, you just have to get close enough to show you had some understanding of the scan. At least for me in radiology, you made the major findings. As you get later on, some of the secondary, tertiary findings. But there's always that like, I don't know what this is. I'll just mark it to discuss. And then that kind of goes away.
You mean when you guys put clinically correlate?
No. Definitely got to clinically correlate. that has never changed. We still want y'all to correlate everything possible, period. But I mean, like, radiology is weird. I mean, I don't want to get too specific into radiology, but radiology is weird in the sense, like, you guys only see the read. You don't necessarily see everything we thought to go into the read, right? Like sometimes there's things we see, but we don't want to like trigger chaos on your end and confusion. And if it's like too indeterminate, it's better if we just bury it in the findings, or sometimes not even comment on it, but we'll evaluate ourselves, look at back at a bunch of priors. So there's a lot can go into it, and it may never even show up in the report or something. And then you just think, oh, this report looks pretty normal, but there may have been a lot more depth to it. And I think that last like kind of closing 10% is what you get in that first 6 months to, you know, for me, it felt like 6 months, where you also don't want to be the guy that comes in as asking everybody questions. You might ask one question, but you're not trying to ask multiple questions. You know what I mean? You're trying to show proficiency.
Of the, you're
like
saying
of your coworkers.
Of your coworkers.
Exactly,
okay.
right? You may get in like a
like, what area is this? They're like, that is a lung.
okay, not that. Yeah. On that level, like, where are we in the body? You feel me?
What is this dangly thing on this?
Exactly.
scan?
Well, hopefully nothing's dangling, but yeah. So I felt definitely like the first 6 months was me getting that final 10% of like learning how to handle kind of indeterminate findings.
The uncertainty of it, which
Exactly.
I think is what the whole medical training process is setting us up to manage.
Yeah.
And the degree to which you are okay with that uncertainty and how you are comfortable with it, and also delegate and look things up. And that gray area, I feel, is what training is.
And I feel that uncertainty is also what kind of breeds imposter syndrome.
Oh, speak to this. What do you mean?
Because as you think it's only you that's uncertain.
So you're saying that medical training could potentially trigger those areas that you feel you might be.
Well, I just think if you're ever in a field where the goal is, like, every field's different, but in medicine you're trying to achieve expertise or some level of expertise. So in order to become an expert, there's always going to be some holes in your knowledge until you get there. And you're always going to feel like those holes only attribute to you. Everyone else is proficient in you, right? But it's actually just innate to the process. And sometimes you're okay with it, and sometimes you get in your head and you think, oh, that was just me.
Oh my gosh. I think this is so great for residents to hear, and everyone in medical training. I mean, everyone along the path of medical training, there's always these situations, or especially new environments, a new team. And in residency, your team changes every 2 weeks, sometimes every week.
Right.
And you could feel so confident one week, and the next week you're like, I don't belong here at all. Like, what am I even doing?
Yeah.
So again, and actually we have a later episode. Dr. Melton is coming in, and we're going to be talking about managing imposter syndrome, because it comes up so much. So you're not alone.
I was trying to transition to Dr. Melton, just a lead in.
Yes, it's like you planned it. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
How do you manage imposter syndrome for yourself?
Oh man, still managing.
Still monitoring.
Yeah. How do I manage imposter syndrome? I think if you just talk to people, you know, there's a level of vulnerability you have to kind of achieve in talking to other people, which then kind of normalizes whatever your insecurities are. But then you also kind of got to do the work to make sure that they actually aren't real deficiencies, and that, you know, it's just this kind of boogeyman that maybe lives in your head. And especially if you, like, you were at UCSF, I was at UCLA, when you train at these like kind of higher institutions, there's all these like people that loom larger than life, kind of. It's like these pseudo hospital celebrities. Oh, were you with Dr. So-and-so? And they're kind of the benchmark, right? But these people have like 20 plus years of experience, right? You're not necessarily comparing yourself to them, but that's what you're viewing as, if I knew what I was doing, it would sound like that, right? So there's a lot of things that kind of push you in that direction, but I think normalizing the behavior, and which I think just happens naturally by talking to people, time, patience, it goes away. You will learn more, you will get smarter, you will become more proficient. So just being a little more patient with yourself, you know, same stuff you would do outside the hospital.
True.
You know?
Yeah. And okay, paint a picture for me. Your first day of residency, do you remember? Because I remember vividly the night before I started residency. half of my brain was
Tell us
like,
about it.
well, for me, half of my brain was going, I can't believe I made it, because I remember right before I started my third year clinicals, I was like, there's no way this same girl that is here today is going to be a third year medical student on her rotation. Like, I couldn't fathom it. So when I was going through it,
Yeah.
it was just day by day, day by day.
Yeah.
But I remember the night I was sleeping in my bed before I was starting at UCSF Family Medicine, and my roommate was also in the program, and we stayed up late talking because we were just so anxious. Like, I cannot believe we have to be real doctors tomorrow.
Yeah. Sleepover chats.
And then I was just like in bed, like, oh my God. And then the first day wasn't as bad because you're a baby intern. No one is like expecting you to do great things.
Right.
You're just, at that point, your body's just adjusting to like waking up at 4, going in, doing like, how do I pre-round? And then your chief is kind of walking you through it. Okay, these are the patients you're going to go round on today. This is where you're going to do it at.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, what am I supposed to ask? And you just go through the motions. And I think the anticipation was definitely the worst part.
Yeah.
What was it like for you?
Well, being a radiologist, I did my first day of residency at a place that was my residency institution. I did my prelim at a different hospital. So that was a little bit weird. I guess I didn't really know what to expect. We had a little mini intern boot camp.
Oh, okay. Did you find that helpful?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, you got it needs everything needs context.
Okay.
You know, it just felt like more classroom work.
Oh,
And it's
it
like
was
it's
didactic.
July,
It was like,
and you're just like, I'm not what. Come on, adenosine. What are we talking about right now? You've been off, you've been traveling, you're rusty. It's a PowerPoint. We did some hands-on stuff, but again, like you got to get in there and do it, right? You need the context, you need the patient to be real, you need consequences, you need all of that. I started in the ICU, which was cool for me, honestly. Fewer patients. We were all kind of around each other. It wasn't like I was in the room, then I got to go around on 4C, and then I was in my workroom. Yeah, like we were all just kind of in the unit the whole time. I just felt slow. I felt a little, you know, it was just like you try to be as autonomous as you can. Like, I hate pestering people, but like, you don't know the EMR. You don't.
It's like you're a first year medical student standing in the corner.
Oh yeah, you're just extra work for them, right? Like, you're supposed to be doing all the work.
You're hyper aware, like, how useless you are.
Yes.
And as a very proficient person in general, it like kills me.
Yeah, no, it was painful because I was like, I'm not an idiot, but I know how this looks right now. It don't look good right now, if that's what I'm trying to portray. So, yeah.
I feel like in medical training, like, I can walk into an environment and literally just look around and observe and be okay with not being the loudest person in the room for the first however long until and I think living in LA, I feel like I go to events and I'm like, I feel like doctors are very good at that. Medical people are good at that because we've spent so long standing in the corner.
Yeah.
And being like, what's my place? I
would say it depends on the doctor, but yeah. There's some that really like to be heard and seen, but yeah, I got you.
You're not wrong. And they were always that way, probably. But.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I have plenty to say, but I'm going to dip my toes in the water. Because it's, to some extent, it's like it's a shared space, and you want how loud you are to be proportional to what you're offering. If I'm a first year, just starting intern, I don't have much to offer. So I also better not be a chatty Cathy. You know what I'm saying? You better slow your roll. If once you're a senior, you're in, and now you're kind of running the, okay, chirp up. What do you got to say? And that's.
Oh my gosh, I know.
That's at least how I took it,
yes.
And subconsciously I think how I moved.
I just remember being a senior resident and having medical students on, and some of them knew this inherent rule. Like, you just stay quiet, don't create too much work, try to add value where you can, and over time contribute, and we get to know you. Some people come in so hot and you're like,
ooh, don't come in hot, stay low and keep firing.
I remember one student was just so out there, just wanted, and I'm like,
It's hard to come back from that, honestly. People will remember
Yeah,
you as that.
exactly.
Yeah, you could torture whole rotation coming in hot.
Start low, go slow.
Yeah.
Like for medications, for
Yeah.
just how you move. I think medical training is I mean, it's a little like the military, and like when you're in this very hierarchical place,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's all these like social rules.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're all bad, but I do think, like, I think it's important on both sides to play the part. Like, as a junior, like, don't, like, it's okay. You got to do a little scud, but it's just your turn, right? Eat it, try to keep a good face, and like make everybody's life easier if you can. But that becomes painful when the senior doesn't do their part. Acknowledge it, appropriate, try to give them some reinforcements here and there, teach them, make their time valuable. Don't, take your foot off the subordinate pedal a little bit as the year goes on. And then all of a sudden it's like, you're cool. You don't mind going to pick up that extra thing or dropping that extra note or doing that extra thing because you and that person have that relationship. It's when you're getting kind of, ground that you're like, this sucks, right? So it's like both sides. It's okay to have the hierarchy, but like if everybody kind of plays their role with a little bit of like, tact or nuance, then it's okay, and then you're like, I'll be there next year, and then I'll be there next year, and he'll be there, and I'll pay it forward. That's a healthy residency to me. It's not always like that though.
Who was your worst senior resident?
Oh geez, I mean, it's weird in radiology. Like, it's a solo.
I know. How does that even work?
Solo mission. Turn the lights off. Try not to fall asleep.
You're like a Navy SEAL. You're just like, okay, we're together, and then we're on our mission.
Wow, that is extremely kind. I don't think radiologists and Navy SEALs have been in the same sentence ever.
That's how we are in our minds.
Like fake Navy SEALs. You're kind of by yourself. Sometimes there may be a senior on rotation with you. The senior's obviously going to know way more. You don't do any radiology in medical school. So
we did a little bit. Who was that one guy who gave us lectures? He was hilarious. Do you remember our
Oh, yeah, the Dr. Zucker.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
He was hilarious.
But that's not, I mean, we looked at some pictures. That wasn't radiology.
Okay,
like
for the rest of us.
Yeah, but I'm saying you couldn't put together a report.
No,
right?
No,
like
no.
You don't know
it was just
how
pattern recognition,
exactly.
Major things you do not want to miss.
Exactly,
yeah.
Exactly. I remember my first day of radiology residency. I was on neuroradiology, and there was calcium in the ventricles, which always happens. Cord plexus calcifies, and I called it all hemorrhage. My attending came over on some, whoa, son, dial everything back. But I was proud.
So glad you shared that
I was
story.
proud of myself for shooting. You know what I'm saying? I didn't just come in and dictate a normal report. I was trying to get shots up. And I ended up going into neuro because I think I immersed myself really aggressively right away. I studied so hard in the beginning. I don't think I ever became as good at anything else as I was in neuro because I was so scared and hungry in the beginning. Who's my worst senior resident? I really don't know. I think we all have personalities that we're drawn to. And there are probably just some personalities, maybe people that just kind of irked me. But radiologists in general, we're kind of just benign people. So I think that's part of why I liked it. You just didn't have these huge extremes of egos as much, It's just like it's a very kind of just intellectual, calm environment. You're just there to like be as critically thinking and as diagnostician as you can. And you're only as good as, how polite and efficient you are. And that's it. You're in the service. So I didn't really have that, like, get scudded out and all that. Sometimes senior residents would, like, take your opportunities a little bit.
How so?
Like, you're reading off a shared work list, and you're like, yo, like, let me, like, leave some food for me. Like, let me cook. Like, I know you can do this all. Like, you've already learned it all or something. Or, like, like, leave the simple CTs for mirrors. Like, so sometimes they weren't as good or, like, sometimes they were just a little more distant. There's a lot of introverts in radiology, and maybe you should be like, damn, like, could you just come give me something here, bro? Like, I'm a little lost. But I had some really good ones. Honestly, truth be told, people were good to me. I really can't complain too much.
You kind of learn. It's such a crazy experience because you have so many different senior residents, and even the not so great ones are the ones that you don't click with. I still learn so much from them because
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna be when I'm a senior resident. This is what worked for me, so this is what I want to do.
100%. Those people, they really inspire you because they're giving you your kind of aha moments, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
something you got right, something you learned, whatever. And that feeling is a bit of a drug and kind of some of the reason you want to, we go into such a learning field in the first place. And all you're thinking is, damn, now I know what I'm doing. And when somebody else comes on, I'm going to give them the same energy. You know what I'm saying? And they're going to be like, I love that senior. The same, everybody's like, oh man, your senior's Chantal. Dude, you're so lucky. When I was on service, Chantal, right? You wanna be that
Okay,
way.
not gonna lie. Well, okay, I was a little bit scary because I was like, we are being efficient. We are not lollygagging. The Virgo came out, but I bought everybody
So who was
food.
the
I
real
would
Navy SEAL?
I would always buy boba. I would always buy food
Oh, nice.
because I was like,
That
the
still goes
least
a
I
long
can
way.
do
Yeah.
is give us some treats and I would always be mindful of their mental health. I feel like that was a big thing for me. It was like, oh, you have this going on. Let's try to get you out.
Yeah.
And it wasn't all the time, but it was like, okay, let me acknowledge that you have something going on. I don't mind picking up the slack because I need to be here every other day on call. So,
That's dope.
like, let me protect you a little bit.
I remember I guess he was a liver fellow. I rotated on liver surgery when I was in third year. And this guy, Joe DeNorcio. Shout out Joe if he's still at UCLA. I think he is. He's an outstanding human being. Like, elite. And we were on, I mean, that's kind of like probably arguably one of the most rigorous things we have at UCLA. And I remember one day me showing up, he was just like, "Oh man, you're tired. Like, do you want to go take a nap and come?" And it wasn't like
That's so kind.
"Oh, you're less than. Go take a
Yeah.
nap. Get out of my way." Like, this man genuine is like I think you would benefit from a little bit of sleep. I didn't do it, but I was just like, that right there bought me another couple hours. You know what I mean? Like, this guy of all people, like like who knows how much sleep he's been getting. That stuff goes a long way.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's there's both ends. You can't be too soft, but when
Right.
people acknowledge it, it helps.
It
helps
does.
a lot.
It
Yeah.
does. Like, do you need a minute? Like,
Yeah.
I remember when I think I was a second year, and there was a senior who just wasn't doing well. And okay, so I think there's this phenomenon in residency. You are either put in a bucket of a good resident or a bad resident. And I think that's how the faculty ends up treating you. And I think it's a psychological phenomenon, but I'm telling you, he was already in the bad resident bin for a lot of reasons. And he gets Bell's palsy in the middle of rounds. And I feel I shouldn't laugh, but it's like I literally because of the stress of everything. And it's like not shocking.
Wow.
But I feel like people were just kind of like, okay, move it along. And that like really broke my heart because I'm just like, we're doctors. Like, why are we making people feel? And
What do you think? Well, two things, but what do you think contributes to someone being labeled as the bad resident? Like, how much of that is on the resident? How much of that is on the system or the residency at play?
it's definitely both. I believe that our system is constantly.
But like, give a percent. Like, who is it? 50-50? Is one more responsible than the other?
I think if you don't know how to play the game.
Mm.
So I believe it is on the resident, but not because there's anything that actually is correlated to like a bad resident other than obviously like not preparing, not maybe having the actual skill set or intellect. But I think everyone's smart enough. Like once you get to residency, there are a few people who really should not be doctors though.
And those are the people who I think get labeled
Yes.
as bad residents.
But
So
even-
then it's like, is it on them or is it on the program?
But I even think that, so there's like bad, but I
Yeah.
think that there's a whole category of not good, not the ones that we've selected as like our shining stars.
Sure.
And I'm actually going to talk about that later in tips for residency because I've
Okay.
noticed this phenomenon. And so he was in the bad bin, but he ended up not passing.
Not passing residency?
Not like he had to leave. Like the program
like
actually
He got fired
didn't pass him.
effectively.
Yes,
I got it.
exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. But I think one of the biggest issues was that there was no sense of urgency. So, and it's almost this you're always on edge because you're always fighting the clock.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I think in residency, it's like there's no spare moment to, it's like the anti-wellness environment.
Yeah.
You are not trying to slow down. You are trying to do it faster. You're trying to be more efficient.
Yeah.
You're trying to use up all the minutes, especially when you're in the hospital, like
Yeah.
when you're on wards.
But like, do you think it's too rigorous, or do you think like that's kind of what's needed to get you where you need to go?
And therein lies the inherent question of residency. I've been trying to answer this question my whole life.
Yeah.
Is medical training the antithesis of a balanced whole life? Like, can you be...
To me, I think it should be as hard as possible with as much compassion as possible.
Challenge, but with support.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Max challenge with max support.
Mm-hmm.
I think it ends up being like 75% or 80% max challenge, whatever it may be, but the challenge outweighs the support.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Depending on where you go, depending on where you train.
Well, I just think that's like, I don't know. I feel like that part's just expected for you to, and there's a lot of, nobody coddled me. Get in there. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of just passing on, like, and
The
not
trauma.
even that. A lot of it's like, back in my day, there was a ton of, so like at UCLA, we had attendings that were at a different hospital when we'd be on call. They'd be covering us and they'd be covering MLK. So they'd overread us, but they were on a bit of a delay because they were covering 2 hospitals. So it wasn't like they were final signing right away. So often clinicians would act on your read. Man, the number of times we got told how watered down our experience was because we had attending coverage. Mind you, attending coverage wasn't there because of our inadequacy. Attending coverage was there because it's just better for patient care. Had nothing to do with us. Like, the truth is, residency training to some extent is training. It's a little antithetical to patient care. Sure, the best thing for patients would have the most senior doctor see every patient. It's unrealistic. So there's this kind of intermediate, and how litigious society is, like the margin for what's okay has just become less and less. So it's like, okay, now radiology is a 24/7 service. But like we were told how watered down you had it so much easier, or you're not doing like that was just the whole thing. You're working hard and being told how easy you have it. That's just not that helpful. That's not that helpful. You know what I mean? Be helpful. Don't do that. That's just not that. It's not cool.
I think that's also a way that we can make training better and the medical profession catch up to a lot of other industries is by allowing change to happen and supporting it while also supporting education rather than it can't change because I did it. So
yeah. And it's tough because it's tough to not fall into that trap, because I'll say this, since I left, and I'm sure you hear what the younger kids are doing, and it's hard not to look at it like, that's some watered down. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what we had. And eventually it's like where is the line? And that's what I keep thinking. I just think people are misinterpreting it. They keep decreasing the challenge. You don't got to decrease the challenge. You got to increase the support. It's like a brake and a pedal type of thing. You don't need to like press the pedal less.
That's so true.
Something like that.
Because we used to have a ton of 24-hour calls in our family medicine program, and then when we started, they had just changed the law that there could be a limit on 24 hours, and you have to have a certain amount of time before you come back into the hospital. Yeah. Now I can't remember what it is, but I remember all the faculty were like, "Why are you guys complaining?" Like, in my day, we had a 24-hour call every week, and I just remember being like, I can't imagine. But, I think I would have done it because yes, we had food overnight, if we had a little bit more, like, I trained at a county hospital, so.
Yeah, if you just had a little more sport.
Like, I'm such an aesthetic person, even if I had, like, a newer clinic, like, a nicer clinic. Yeah. But it felt like we were just like, my computer doesn't work.
At the
like
VA with sticky keys.
My L doesn't work on my keyboard, and you want me to see all these people.
Yeah.
The support part, that part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my take, at least.
Okay, I want to get into some of our actual tips for starting residency.
Yeah.
So we've touched on a few of them.
Sure.
Did you bring any with you today?
I may have I may have misunderstood the assignment. I did write down a few things, but mine were kind of broad picture stuff, and I just wrote like some very basic stuff on what I thought it was like what to do before residency, like how to prep for residency.
Oh, I love that.
So, but I mean, I can come up with stuff, and I'll just kind of feed off you because the stuff I wrote down is very simple, but just to trigger what I was thinking. So, why don't you?
I'll start with our first tip.
Sure.
For starting,
Yeah.
and I think investing in small pleasures for me was a really important thing.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, everyone was wearing those like Lululemon zip ups with their scrubs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
They weren't Lulu. Stop it.
At that time, I would have never, like before residency, I would have never imagined paying that much. I was like, okay, how much can my student loans like take out for a Target sweatshirt?
Right.
But I said, I'm a resident now. I have to have a Lululemon. And for some reason, it gave me so much pride, like putting that on and getting like the nice coffee.
Yeah.
That I could take in the morning, maybe some new clothes, like some really soft fabrics. That's the type of thing that will make my day, even if it's going to be a challenging day.
Yeah. I like that.
Are you that way, or is that?
No. No, I'm not that way, but I can appreciate it.
Okay.
I think probably subconsciously I do have my little things, but I don't know if I was that aware of that in med school, in residency. And since then, maybe I've picked some up, then maybe not in my awareness. But I get what you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's your tip?
The first one I wrote down was something to the effect of master sleep proficiency.
That sounds like a radiology read.
Well, I just wrote sleep, but what I'm getting at effectively is like your general sleep hygiene. Like I think you just have to be a little less casual about sleep and a little bit more more structure to your sleep, right? You're going to be carrying a little bit more stress now. You're going to be waking up a little bit earlier. You're going to have a little more chronic fatigue. Like where am I going to...
Chronic fatigue.
The chronic fatigue. Exactly.
That's so real.
You will. It just your
so
sleep
real.
deficit is going to build. It's just naturally going to happen. So just like whatever it is, blackout curtains, like what
blackout curtains.
You just have a little
so
bit
important.
a little bit of an actual routine, like don't sleep, procrastinate, have a little more discipline. Like if you were an 11 o'clock person in med school, see if you can push it to be a 10:30 person intern year and maybe eventually become a 10 o'clock person. Now you're getting an hour a night, an extra hour, which is 7 hours a week. Like some little things like that. Like what is my bedtime routine? Like not
Super
on your
comfy
phone,
sheets,
not whatever it is.
blanket.
Exactly. All of
Agreed.
that.
Yeah, that's
Optimize.
such a good idea.
Optimize the sleep from the jump, because up until that point, I think you don't ever consciously think about, am I getting good sleep or not? Like you're young, you're fluid, you just sleep. Like it's good. And some people maintain that, but I think it's better to prep before life gets hard. So I would see if you can bring some more structure to your sleep. That's what I put.
Make the choice easier for yourself.
100%.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan, because if you would have told me you need sleep, I'd have been like, yeah, I know. But I just worked all day and I feel like going out with my friends.
Yeah, exactly.
I really abuse my body in residency.
We all do. I mean, it's a bit of a work hard, play hard, but
it is. You're like, I'm entitled to this.
Yeah, you got one day off. Turn up.
And then everyone's just like, tomorrow's gonna suck, but
yeah, exactly.
We gotta live it up.
Yeah, that's almost a bit of like a pride.
It is
sticker. Like
it is.
I worked 6 days and I went out, and like it's weird how people are like pseudo competitive about it, but
I know it is.
Yeah.
Now I'm just like, oh, it's 10 p.m. Like you can't tell me nothing. I'm going home.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Number 2 for me would be choose faculty that don't have an agenda. So you cannot choose your faculty, but I do remember that all of my faculty were amazing to look up to, approachable, super just beasts in their field. And after working with them over time, I saw who really was invested in what I was interested in, who really just wanted me to do like their fellowships, their subspecialties,
Yeah, that's always a weird thing. I never understood that.
And I was like, oh wow, these people just are really invested in me. And looking back now, like where I've been, I'm like, there were only a few that really were like, you don't actually want to do primary care. I can tell. They were like, you seem you have ideas, you love to travel. Like maybe think about other careers, like start per diem and explore. I literally had a faculty tell me that, and I was like so ashamed because I was like, no, but I want to be a UCSFer. Like I want to be a fellow. I want to be,
Yeah.
and she saw already, like, I don't think that's where you're at. Like you don't even like clinic.
I have a question. What if you did want to be all those things and somebody said that to you? How would you receive it?
It wouldn't have felt.
Would it felt like they didn't believe in you? Like she thinks I'm less than, so she's telling me, "Oh, you don't really want to do this."
That's a good question. I think
Just out of curiosity.
Well, I think I would have really thought about it after my initial reaction of this person doesn't believe in me, and then let it settle in and does it feel like truth. At that time, I was still learning how to tap into my truth because I had been taking in all the messages that I had to be a certain way in order to pass the test, to get the interview, to get accepted.
Yeah.
So at that time, it was hard for me to tell what my truth was. So
That's
that's a really good point. You don't really know.
Yeah. I'm just thinking out loud. Yeah. The next thing I had down was loans and financial literacy. Because I feel like you kind of start, some people are on it, some people aren't, like get on it from the jump. Because even like I look back, now all those, I mean, we got lucky with COVID, but just finding a way to be if you loan forgiveness, making small payments, just making sure you're on a program from day one. And even just putting money in a Roth, like all that stuff, the compound interest, like you're young, those years matter. And like you think about us, 2015, like what if you put $100 in Bitcoin every day?
Or, you still can't live that down.
No, I mean, I just think about these things, like how much growth occurs. You're gonna be in residency for a long time. I was in residency and fellowship for 6 years. The amount of growth the market had from 2015 to 2021. Maybe I didn't have that money, but just a little bit. As silly as it sounds, put $100 in.
I would have. Yeah.
Yeah, and even if you're not putting the money in, know what it is that you're missing out on. Have the literacy. I know you're so busy learning everything else, but number one, loans. Make sure your loans are tidied up, where they are, the interest rate, who, where, what, and why. Don't be casual about it. And then if you really are intrigued, start learning about money a little bit, because I found all my friends, even once we became an attending, like a lot of us were just...
We were blowing our money. It was so disgusting.
Boy. We were worse than the athletes.
Yeah, we went to Tulum.
Yeah. No, we were living well.
I bought my first Louis Vuitton. It was like I had a baby.
Treat yourself in residency, but I'm saying just have awareness of a plan, so when real money does come, you're good.
Yes.
And just if you can set aside a little bit, you can. But yeah, definitely in residency, I was spending it like I had it.
Agreed.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm gonna be rich one day.
Yeah, living off future earnings. Try not to abuse that.
Yes, especially with the interest rates right now. They're even higher than when I was in school.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I had subsidized, a lot of my loans were subsidized, so I wasn't accumulating interest.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think a lot of those programs are gone now, so I would just be extra cautious about not, just minding the expenses.
I was accumulating. So for us accumulators, be on top of it.
Also, training in San Diego, or LA, and then San Francisco. I was living in San Francisco as a resident when it was like the most expensive.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if I would recommend that again. I mean, I definitely dated a guy that I lived with so I could live in his apartment. I'm ashamed to admit it, but it's real. Okay, it was a very nice apartment.
Hey, I
had
appreciate the honesty.
View.
If this is spilling the tea, spill it.
I would have broken up with him a lot earlier, but
Hey, buddy, if you out there, don't take it personally. If you listen to the pod, don't take it personally.
I think he knew after a while, but
yeah, he was subsidizing the subsidizer.
He didn't care.
Nice.
Who's next? Was it me?
I think it's you. Yeah.
I would say my third tip is, and it sounds a little bit obvious, exercise. And exercise, and even now I've incorporated exercises that I can do, like little weights. There's YouTube videos, literally do 20 minutes a day.
Totally.
Just incorporating a little bit of like weights, I think I wish I would have done that in residency, because I was like, oh, I'm going to run, or I'm going to do something that I could have done something a little bit easier.
Yeah. I had fitness as well, and I think ultimately what you're getting at is just find it doesn't matter what you do, just find a plan you can actually keep. You're going to be tired, just find something that works. I have found that sometimes linking fitness and community can help. I have friends.
Also.
Well, I have friends that do like Orange Theory. I did Berries for a while. Like those little types of having people around that they're trying to get it, I'm trying to get it. Like that can help motivate. Some people love spin classes, whatever it may be. Sometimes that helps. That little, as opposed to just you going down to your apartment building gym, can sometimes be tougher to find the motivation.
That's so true, because a lot of times if you're not in the same rotation, or you may not see your best friend for a while.
Right.
I remember
That's
in
my
med
best
school,
friend.
Casey always, that's my best friend. Remember Casey? She would
Yeah.
always take me to yoga, and I was never really into it, but I would always go because she asked me, and I was like, oh, I haven't talked to you in a while, so then I got into
Huge.
yoga.
Shout out Casey.
Yeah, thank you, Casey.
Yeah.
And then, so what's your next one?
Great question. They start to fall off a little bit
Okay.
here. I had fitness as well. This is a weird one. I wrote down expectation management.
Okay.
Lower your expectations.
The key to a happy life. You
Yeah,
heard it here
exactly.
first.
I think that can cause a lot of internal friction when you're expecting your life to look a certain way. Especially if you maybe match in like a big city in New York or whatever. Like you're gonna be out and about.
Are
but
you
it's-
talking about your experience at Cornell?
No. I had a COVID year. We did a whole lot of nothing. I was there when it was COVID. I'm just saying, I trained in New York and LA. People really, part of the reason being there, it's not like training at a WashU, perhaps. No shade to WashU, but, or the Midwest or Mayo Clinic. Someone's like, I want to be in Rochester, Minnesota, out and about. That does, but New York and LA, you're going there because you also want to experience.
I know.
And I'm like, just temper a little bit. Like, for example, in radiology, I underestimated how much we were going to need to study.
You were reading all the time. I remember you would be
Yeah,
like, I feel like I can't read enough.
So much of radiology is just rare diagnoses. And you got to just be able to come up off the hip and have those ready. And you're not going to get that in your day-to-day. Common things are what's showing up on your... But you still got to know that stuff for the just in case. You're only getting that by reading. And then every day you're being pimped in noon conference, Thursday conference. You want to be proficient. You're being pimped at the workstation. Not for malicious intent, but just to see that you're reading and thinking about the right stuff. That took a little bit of an adjustment for me, and just that I didn't anticipate how much I was going to be studying. Like I thought it would be more like a job where I'm grinding at work and then
and you can turn it off.
Yeah, I know it's naive of me, but I wasn't aware of it. It wasn't in my awareness. So expectations. Social life won't be as lit as you think, and you may be working at work or after work more. It's just lower all of it, and I think you'll feel a little less internal friction.
I definitely think you and I had a lot of expectations.
It's possible. It is
Which is
possible.
why it was like, hey, do you want to go to dinner? We went to the nicest place in LA, and we would be like, what are we doing after this? Like, I don't think you and I were in the mindset. We were trying to do both, and I think it also caused us a lot of stress.
Yeah.
I think if I would do it over again, I would also be more strategic about, like, I don't need to train at the top of the top and be in San Francisco. I could go to a family medicine residency in a city that's a little less expensive. I could probably buy a home. I can probably pay these loans down. Did it work out for me? Absolutely, because I feel that I wanted more opportunities.
Do you think you benefit, not to interrupt, do you think the long-term benefit of that brand name, though, is not worth it? At least for me as a minority, I feel like it's worth it for me. It's whether it's real or not, in human psychology, I feel like it's a pseudo stamp of approval.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I don't need to have my guard up. I think it suggests, if you're continually training at better research institutions, I think it reflects well. So for me personally, I would do it again. Sounds like maybe you had a different feel, but just probing a little bit.
I do think it matters.
Yeah.
I do think when I say UCLA trained, UCSF trained, it's like a,
Yeah, I'm going to take her seriously.
But
No knock to other programs. I'm just saying. I think
knock
that's
to
how
other programs. It's
humans
real.
are,
It's
yeah.
definitely real. It opens a lot of doors. However, because now I'm in like an entrepreneur space, events, I work with brands, partnerships. I want to be in the scene. It also works. But I think if I knew, hey, I want to have kids early, I want to have more, I want to invest more, I maybe want to get more into real estate. Like, I think if I had a different trajectory where I maybe didn't want to be in the scene building a brand, I would have gone to a program where that would have been more possible. Because a lot of doctors that I know in LA still don't own homes.
That's a whole nother pod.
It's a whole nother, it depends on like, look 10,
pod.
20 years out. And a lot of people don't know, which is totally fine. But I think as someone who was like always trying to prove herself and go to the best place,
Right.
because I wanted to belong and be accepted and, all of that, I think I would have wanted to detach a little more from the glitz and glamour of the name and be like, does it actually work for me? Like,
Right.
is it in line with my goals? That's all I'm saying.
That's fair. That's fair. I don't know, who are we on? Was that me with expectation management?
Expectations. And then I'm going to say, find a little creative practice. Journal even for 5 minutes a day. Take a walk for 5 minutes. Do something a little bit on the creative side.
Yeah.
Read a fiction book. Draw, paint. Do something that it feels counterintuitive because you're not producing, you're not reading.
Yeah.
But I think this is just good for your brain, good for your mental health.
Yeah. Totally. And those hobbies are probably what's going to keep you
literally
going.
When you graduate, you're like, who am I? I have no hobbies.
Exactly. So mine was kind of similar, but a little different. Similar, I was like kind of just, you are a doctor and you are a doctor in training, and your job is to get the best training possible. But as evidenced by what you're doing right now and a lot of other people, I've actually come to realize, like, a lot of people who aren't in clinical medicine, and they just don't, like, have a narrow focus, but also just keep a little bit of your eye open as to if something is interesting to you, or you don't always have the time, but just keep it in your mind. Eventually you may have the time, and it's just good to keep your skill set just a hair broader. I mean, there's nothing more important than getting your clinical expertise, but just keep your eyes and ears peeled a little bit.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more.
Just a bit,
I feel that I was always attracted to fashion, art, beauty, and I felt in some ways I wasn't allowed to be because it would make me, like, I wasn't the whole family medicine. I always felt a little different.
Yeah.
And then now I feel like following those things and kind of merging everything together has created the career that I'm super happy with.
Yeah.
So those parts of yourself, don't ignore it because you think it doesn't fit. And I actually just created this PDF for doctors and healthcare workers about a creative practice and sort of like reconciling those parts of yourself that feel that you don't belong. That's actually probably where you want to listen to and follow that. And like, they're in that space in between is probably where your ideal career lives.
What do you think would have happened if you had some of the thoughts you had that pushed you into the career you have now during residency? Because I feel like a lot of it came to you sort of after residency. Like, you had a little momentum, you'd saved up some money, you were kind of like, okay, what's next type of thing. But what do you think would have happened if you were battling some of that?
Oh man, I
Like,
probably wouldn't have finished. I would have,
been tough.
if I would have been like, if I had gotten any traction online as like an influencer, if I had gotten, I don't know, I was so zero in focused.
Yeah, which you should be.
Which I'm grateful for how things played out, but I might have not finished. Now, try to get me to do something I don't want to do.
It's not happening.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
But back
It's
then,
good, though.
It is.
You've done the work. You deserve to do what you want to do.
Right. On the other hand, it's like, but I put in all those years of.
Yeah, you earned it.
In some ways.
Yeah, you built up the equity to do exactly and only what you want to do.
Right, exactly. I see all these accounts on Instagram like, oh, just buy my course, do this thing. And I feel like a boomer because I'm like, it's not that easy. You
If you want to feel like a boomer, Why don't you get off Instagram like your boy? No, I'm just kidding.
Yes. How do you know what's going on? Do you actually read the news?
I have no idea. But you were saying, though, you feel like a boomer because you're seeing these accounts that kind of...
They glamorize this type
exactly.
of lifestyle that I'm like, this took me 20 years to get to.
Right.
Right? Like the vacations, the designer stuff, the building a brand. And I think it's just that much more impactful when you have life experiences to draw from, and it doesn't have to be education. It could be anything. It could just be a skill set or something that you did.
Yeah. I mean, I think those people are just trying to catch lightning in a bottle. And that's...
Exactly. It's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work out long term.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I think that stuff just all sputters.
Maybe that just makes me feel better about going to med school and residency.
No, I think because if this world ever goes in a different direction, like, you'll always have that merit to fall back on.
That's true.
And I think that's important. I think you probably even take yourself more seriously doing this because you've done that.
That's true. Keeping promises to yourself, the biggest way to build self-confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the fifth thing that I have actually is to speak about this whole good resident, bad resident bin, that sorting that tends to happen. And what I would say is just be authentic, but also know that the faculty they all have your eye on you for like where you're going to go.
Yeah.
You know, and the same thing with med school, they want you to match. So as much as they want to support your journey, they also want to make themselves look good. They also have their own agenda, not in a bad way, but as like a program. And so choose like one thing to be passionate about and be a little bit more involved in. So if my thing was health policy, single payer, and women's rights. So I would jump on papers to do some advocacy for like local legislation around abortion. And I was involved with single payer advocacy, where I just went to meetings and I just helped them kind of how to catch more resident involvement. And it really wasn't that much extra time, and I enjoyed doing it because it was different. And I think it gave me a glimpse into how can I use my voice as a doctor in different areas. And I think that was a really good experience for me. And then the faculty ended up seeing me as like, wow, she's very invested. She's the health policy girl. And I just felt that they were so much more supportive of me.
You felt that helped keep you out of the bad resident bin? Or how does that tie into the...
Because I absolutely think it did. Because once I became a senior resident and I was in touch with my faculty more, where you're managing patients together, then they're sitting down with you, and this is a chance you have to be human with them.
You had like a non-clinical relationship with them.
Exactly. They'd be like, oh, tell me about your policy, how's that going? And you would just talk about that, and you'd be able to bond over it, and they'd be like, oh, that's so amazing, and they would ask you. And so you just end up standing out as a resident. And I even hate to bring this up because I don't want people to feel they need to go the extra mile, but if there is something that you're passionate about, and I think it does go a long way, because those are the same faculty who are like, oh, what are you doing after graduation? Let me connect you with this person. Really, there's no central location that doctors look for jobs. The best jobs I've ever gotten have been through word of mouth by my faculty or my attendings.
There used to be a joke in radiology that good jobs don't get posted.
They never do.
Well, I mean, now the market is crazy. There's a huge demand post-COVID. But like back when radiology was in its heyday and supply was low and demand was high, that's, kind of what people said.
No, it's true. Even for family medicine, you can go find a job in family medicine. Is it going to be a great place? There's so many ways that you can practice, and the best, most supportive practices that have the money, they're going to say, like, I've had a job before where I left and they said, you will always have a home here. If you ever want to come back, we will create money in our budget for you. And having that, and that's the other thing, always leave all your opportunities with grace. If something doesn't work out, always meet with the CMO, meet with the faculty, like meet with someone and just say, hey, this isn't working out for me, but I am so appreciative of these things. And I promise you, because medicine is so small, your reputation is everything.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, I feel like I got my first job on a big part of having a good reputation at UCLA.
Really?
Yeah, there were a lot of UCLA people that were there, and I think that helped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because anybody puts so much into hiring someone into one of these groups that just one bad apple can that almost like your who you are as a person out. Because once you get to that point, there's so many people that can do the work. That's less of the question. It's like, can we get along with you?
Are you a good fit?
Yeah, fit is huge.
It
Exactly.
is.
How malleable are you? How patient are you? That stuff. So yeah, I agree.
Well, this has been such a great discussion, and I really hope that people have benefited. Congrats on everyone who matched, and also who didn't match. Everything will be okay. There, as we talked about today, there's so many opportunities in the world, and don't let anyone determine that for you. You determine your own opportunities. So thank you so much for coming on, and it's such a pleasure to see you always.
Absolutely. Likewise. Thanks for having me, Chantal.
I would ask where people can follow you, but he does not want to be followed. He wants to drop his message, drop the mic, and live a healthy, balanced, disconnected life.
That's right. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. So yeah, have a great day, and remember to like and subscribe.
And comment.
And comment. Thank you.
Holler in the comments if you have any questions.
Yes. Drop your questions for if you're starting residency, or if you have any questions, we'd love to answer.